God's people said, Amen. How fun was that? Tremendous. Thank you so much, guys, as you have led us. Down through the years, Ashley and I have been fortunate enough to been in some rather large situations where meetings would take place and folks would sing, and we have been at several of Bailey Smith's Real Evangelism Conference. Folks, you won't hear any finer music than you've been a part of this morning anywhere. Just telling you. It's incredible that we have folks that are gifted and honored and talented to do this whole process. I was thinking, Emma Latham may stand at the plate during the spring and knock a softball, slam out of the state of Alabama. But there's nothing greater that does my heart any better than to see her just worship the Lord behind that piano and sing.
Amen.
I'm just really moved at knowing that God has put us together at this very special time. It's neat to see how that has transpired. And we are engaged in this lengthy series. And if you think, oh my, I missed something, you're right on the edge, okay? We're just getting started. This being the fourth week of the teaching from the mountain, as Jesus, delivered, there's no question, the most powerful 3-chapter combined teachings that you'll find in the entire Bible. Jesus said, you want to show folks, you want to really understand what it means to live out and to walk as a Christian and to be the kind of folk that is genuine and real. You want to be the kind of folk that doesn't have to put on a facade for Sunday morning and smile and grin and you're in turmoil on the inside. You don't want to just have to go through life in a mediocre state. Jesus said, here it is. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. It's going to be incredibly challenging. Up till this point, of Matthew 5, 6, and 7, all the religious thought of the day was handled by the scribes and the Pharisees. And they were the religious muckabuck. They had interpreted the law. They had written the law. They had put together their lifestyles. And the Pharisees had really said, okay, hey, you want to see what it means to be a person chasing after God? And so they would pray 18 times a day. Folks watched them do that, and they're thinking, man, we got to work. We can't pray 18 times a day. We can't stop what we're doing and just pray 18 times a day. The Pharisees said, hey, you want to get in touch with God? You got to do it that way. And so what we have found is that Jesus came on the scene, and he offered in one verse of Scripture, right in the middle of this whole thing, and said to that group of folks that for hundreds and hundreds of years had thought this is the only hope. This is the only way. Everybody wanted to go to heaven. Everybody wanted to know God. Everybody wanted to have a relationship with God. And I am certain that in this modern era that we live in, folks that show up at church want to have some kind of relationship with the Lord. They want to at least know that there is a God in heaven and that He's real and that He's not antiquated, outdated, outmoded, that He's absolutely the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. They want to know that. And so we have come to this place in our lives where we can do all kinds of stuff on Sundays. There are a few of us here that remember that the only thing that was popular to do on Sunday back in the day was go to church because there was no Walmart open. You wasn't going out to eat at no restaurant because they were not open. You wasn't going to buy gas at a filling station because they were not open. You were not going to shop anywhere. It wasn't available. There was no computers that would wrap up your time. You might find 3 fuzzy television stations on the air. If you had an incredible antenna, you might get one of those stations clear. There's some of us that remember those days, but it has not, this day and age, that is far gone. And it is nothing more than memories. Because you can do exactly what you want to do today. And you can claim that you're a believer. You can show up at church once a week and do whatever you want to the rest of the time. And nobody will ever say anything about that. But I want you to know that somewhere in the center part of the state, being birthed to a 36-year-old mom that would slip into eternity 3 months after the birthing, God saw fit to bring me about. And as long as I've got breath in me, this book will be the guide. And the teaching of this book is by far the most important process God has done in my life. And how God could reach into the hearts of the center part of this state and touch a kid that was being adopted and reared by a family that was not church, had no intention of being church, knew that there was a God in heaven, but that's all they had. And God took out of that this little old tow-headed boy. Churches started running, missionary-minded people would come by and pick him up on an old raggedy, broke-down school bus that had been condemned by the county, and they took baling wire and duct tape and held it together and poured oil in it more than they did gasoline, and they just got it there, and he got there, and next thing you know, at 12 years old, God said, you know what? You've come to church. Miss Davis has taught you a lot about Bible stories. Miss Bobby Dale Boswell has poured thousands of gallons of Kool-Aid for you young ones out there under that old shade tree in Vacation Bible School. But on August the 5th, 1974, God said, it's not about what you know about me, it's about you surrendering your heart to me. And I yielded to Christ. And at that moment in my life, I changed. I began to chase after the things of God. There was a lady by the name of Miss Hardaway Johnson that gave me a Bible. I couldn't read that Bible at 12 years old. I had to figure out how to read a little bit. And I started reading that Bible. And it was no King James Version like I got here. And I'd get tied up in the vowels. I'd get turned upside down in some of the other terminology. But God reached into my life and said, hey, I've got a task for you, son. And at 12 years old, he began to shape, mold, and redirect my life in an incredible way. Walked through the journey and pilgrimage of my life and had the awesome privilege of saying at 21 years old, I accept you, Lord, to follow in full-time Christian service. And you know my parents are lost. You know my sister is lost. My family's lost. They're not lost. They don't know about the Lord. And had the privilege of winning my mama to Jesus and baptizing her and seeing my sister come to know Christ and baptizing her and chatting with my stepbrother today on a regular basis, and him knowing that God's real, and my daddy assuring me that he had. All of that took place. Why? Because of a little young'un birth to a mama that was dying. 1962. And here 56 years later, stand before a congregation that I love dearly. And I'm convinced, if I've ever been convinced of anything, that God's going to mess with every one of us like they've never been messed with before, if you'll hang in here with this text. I mean, Boggy, you ought to be reading Matthew 5, 6, and 7 every day. I ought to be your daily Bible reading every day, just read. God, what you going to teach me today? God, how you going to deal with me today? God, what you going to mess up in my life today? That ought to be your heartbeat. So if you come to this text today, here's the deal. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to get real busy and be done in a few minutes, but I want you to know something. What you'll find in this particular beatitude is a portrait, if you will, It's a word portrait. It's written. It's not drawn. It's not snapshotted, and it's not on a screensaver. No, it is a word portrait. And here's what he says to us: in that it is a portrait of inward humility. I want you to look at it. I can throw it up there. Matthew 5:5. Here it is. Makaros, blessed. Makaros being happy. Happy are the word meek there, and this is an interesting word. It is phreos. Phreos is only used 4 times in the entire Bible. This word meek is only, this particular word is only used 4 times, phreos. He said, if you're going to be a happy person, then you've got to understand what meekness is. And if you and I look up meek today and we begin to talk about people that are meek and go through the process, most of the time we will have tied to them a thought pattern that, you know what, they're just not strong individuals. They're mild. Their temperament was such that they would be just run over, if you will. There were children that I went to school with. I watched that were just, you know, they just kind of back away from any type of pressure or any kind of confrontation that would require them to display that they had any strength. Well, phreos is not that word. Because he goes on to say, blessed, happy is what? Are the meek. And you notice he didn't say happy is the person or happy are the meek. It is a group, for they shall inherit the earth. Now, everybody is about inheriting, and you know, every one of us has got an old rich uncle somewhere or another, and sooner or later our ship's coming in. Y'all, everybody on that page, eh? They know what I'm talking about. Y'all, there's a bunch of you been waiting on it a long time. Well, this inheritance situation is a unique thing. Because what inheritance basically means is that you're going to be given something for nothing. You get the picture here, okay? You can't work for it. You haven't done anything in your life to earn it. You just going to inherit it. My daddy and mama worked like just slaves all of their life. Daddy went to work right out of World War II. He went to the CC camp down here in Moundville, started his process, helped build that whole process down there at Moundville, went back, went to work for sawmilling. Oh, he was making a killing. 12 cents an hour. Sawmilling, snaking logs, gray mules, no John Deere tractors. Worked hard, amassed, him and my mama, 350 acres of land, paid for every penny of it. Built 2 homes from scratch. Tore one down, wasn't no good no more, they thought. Termites eat it up, just bulldozed it to the earth. And my daddy was as such, he didn't like to owe nobody nothing. He borrowed enough money to pay for the building of the new brick home. That went on for about 6 months, and he told my mama, he said, look, we've got 60 acres of land that is on the back side of nowhere. There ain't no way in the world. I have to walk for about a half a day to get there. It ain't connected to a road. It's just in the middle back there. Why don't we sell that 60 acres? I'm thinking, who's going to buy 60 acres of land out there in the middle of nowhere? You're going to have to somehow or other give them a right-of-way to go down through yonder, and all we have was logging roads. I mean, you got to go through the rest of this thing to get back there. I want you to know 2 folks showed up in a hurry. One of them was a preacher, another one was a fellow. One bought 40, the other one bought 20. Daddy took his money. You know, it's cash back in. They didn't, government wasn't worried about it. Cash, run off over back to the bank. Call Ray, I don't want you to send me another bill for this house. Paid it off. I left 240 acres. As time moved on, Daddy got older. Mama got older. And then this age would have it, they both slipped into eternity. Well, there's one child in their family that was adopted by them that had the last name of Boswell. But they raised 2 other children that were illegitimate children. You know what that means? There's some folks acting fool. They were illegitimate children of my mama's sister. She just took them in just like as hers. Just took the babies in. They never knew no different. Never knew no different. Both of them still living today. I'm their brother. They think of me as their brother. Everybody wondered what's going to happen to this piece of property in this house, all this stuff. What's going to go on down here? Roger's going to come swooping in from North Alabama. He's the only one. He's a rightful heir. He's supposed to inherit all this. His last name is the last name of the Boswell. That's it. What's he going to do? Daddy slipped away. I eased in there with my brother and sister, and I said, we're going to meet. I said, and here's how we're going to do. We're taking 5 acres of the house, selling, dividing in 3 ways. Y'all getting the majority of this dirt down here. I want 50 acres. The rest of it y'all's. You 2 divide it evenly. I take my 50, because I'm going to sell my 50 and get away from here. And sold it to the fellow that had bought the 20. He's still back there. Way back there. Now he's got road frontage. He thinks he's done arrived. He's done made it to New York City. High-rise apartments. I didn't do a thing in the world to earn that piece of property. Nothing. I was blessed to be adopted. I was fortunate to be reared in a family. I wasn't about to fight and feud and fuss over that dirt. This passage says, Macaros, happy are the meek. Frios is Phreos is that word that means meek, for they shall inherit the earth. What in the world is Christ talking about here? Because if you and I think about inheritance day, we think about just like I inherited that dirt down. I hadn't done anything like it. What is he talking about? Wow. What Christ was saying to that group of folks. You want to go to heaven? Your righteousness has got to exceed the righteousness of the folks you follow after. 520. You got to be better than the Pharisees. How in the world are we going to pray more than that? I ain't got 19 times to stop for it. No. What is he talking about inheritance? What are you going to, how are you going to inherit it? I got good news for you. According to John's vision in Revelation chapter 19, Jesus is coming back. Amen. And when he comes back, he's bringing a whole entourage with him. That entourage is the bride of Christ. Who are the bride of Christ? We are. The church. Oh my! All of a sudden, Jesus says to this group of folks, he paints for them the picture, happy is the person that Phreos, that is meek, they're going to inherit the whole earth. All of a sudden, that mentality is beginning to change in their life. And so what we find here is that he gives them a picture of inward humility. What is this Phreos? It is exercising God's strength under his control. Get it? Phreos, meek, exercising God's strength under his control. We need that today. We need to be under control by God, of God, and for God. We need to allow God to control our thoughts, our heart, our actions, and our way of living. When that happens, then you and I will be a demonstration of what it really means to have meekness as a part of us. Why? Because we will be stronger than we've ever been before. Now, what in the world does this Bible say about this? In about 10 minutes, I'm going to give you the whole thing, and you're going to have to digest it the best you can real rapidly. Let's pray and get real busy. Brother Roger carries the deacon of the month in September. Why don't you pray for us, Brother Roger? Let's get busy.
Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to your house with thanksgiving and praise to your name, Father. Father, we ask you to be with the ones that are not able to be with us this morning. They long to be here but unable. Father, as the people accepted the Sermon on the Mountain, may our hearts open wide this morning for the sermon that we hear here. Father, we praise you, we love you,
This inward strength is displayed in what we call the fruits of the Spirit today. Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 through 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. So all of a sudden we begin to see that you and I have an inward strength that is absolutely phenomenal. If you are a believer, these will be, not might be, not that you think about occasionally, they will be pieces of your everyday life. You will display kindness. You will display goodness. You will display patience. And I know some of us, patience. I was watching Garson back there, Jill. Him and Parker sitting over there. Sarah. And during that singing, they was chatting a little bit. I can tell they was chatting. I don't know what they was chatting about, but they was chatting. And I'm thinking, boy, their patience is real thin with this thing. Whatever's going on there, their patience is run out. Patience is something that we need to display. Our children today are reared in a society that doesn't know anything about patience. They're instantaneous folk. They want everything right now. I mean, it don't matter what the cost. It don't matter how much sweat, blood, and tears mama, daddy, grandma, grandpa puts into it. They want it now. If they want a new baseball or softball bat, they want it now. That thing's going to cost you $400, $500, $600, $700, $800. That don't bother you. That bothers me. I didn't say nothing about no piece of ash wood hewn out and cut. You slapping a ball around. These folks are making a killing off that mess. And young ones think they got to have one because it's the latest, greatest, and bestest. And I'm going to hit that thing further if I got one. Well, they want the same thing. I got to have a special glove. That thing's got to be made. You get the picture. I want you to see this. I don't want you to miss it. This is the outward presentation of inward strength. Patience, goodness, self-control. Don't go too far in debt so that you can't give to church. I'm just being real, okay? But a lot of folks don't like to talk honest with people. I'm convinced, as I am just convinced about it, that is what's wrong with church today. This isn't a little easy place to somehow or another come and be pampered. It's not a place where you're going to come and feel warm and oozy and cozy and walk off and live like the depths of hell all week. You ought to be challenged. And so what we find here is in the Bible, Jesus is saying to that group of folks sitting on that hillside, listen, if you want to experience meekness, meekness is that expression every day of what you're doing in your walk with God. So if you're living like the devil, just go ahead and convince yourself and understand of yourself and commit yourself and say to yourself, I must not know him. I know I've been going to church all my life, but going to church ain't going to do you a bit of good when you stand before the Father. That's right. What's going to do you good is knowing him in a real, personal, powerful way and surrendering your all to him and yielding your life to him. That's what's going to do you good. So what we find is that for these fruits begin to be outwardly. Well, what does all that look like then? Preacher, how in the world can they be? How can I live this out? What is Jesus saying to me? If I need to be this meek person, this person that is strong in God's strength and controlled by him, what does that look like? Three things and we're done. Here it is. First of all, meekness portrays a person, number one, who walks in godly peace. Got that? Walks in godly peace. The Bible says this in verse number 9. Macaros, happy, what? Are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Those folks that are walking in peace have the intent on being peaceful people and encourage folks around them to be peaceable. The church needs to get busy about that. There's enough meanness and just absolutely awful things that transpires within inside of church bodies. We need to be peacemakers, people that are engaged in that process. And so what you need to know here is that the very first thing that you can see about the inward strength of God, living out, fleshing out, walking in this thing, is Jesus said if you hope to go to heaven, one of the things that's going to be evident in your life is that you're going to be a peacemaker because the fruits of the Spirit are going to just be flowing out of you. Wow. Isn't that good? That's incredible. Paul said this to the folks at Philippi. He said in Philippians 2, he said, do all things without just grumbling or disputing, that you may be blameless, innocent children of God, without blemish, in the midst of a crooked, twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights of the world. I think Paul got a hold of this thing that Jesus is talking about here. Because if you read just a little bit further, and it's going to be a part of who we are for the next month, read a little bit further, it says, let your light so shine. You see what it said? You're going to be lights to the world. That's especially this thing out. This group of folks had not known anything but the Pharisaical way of life. It was all an outward deal. It all had to be appearance built. It had nothing to do with the inward condition of their life. Meekness is an inward strength that can be controlled by God. You and I must be submissive to that and understand it. Well, meekness portrays a person who walks in godly peace, but then secondly, lays down his rights. Really? Yes. Look at Matthew 5, 23 and 24. Look what it says. Here he says, so if you're offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar. Go first, be reconciled to your brother, and then come offer your gift. And so what you find is that you lay down your rights. You simply say, I am sorry, and then I am going to act upon that sorrow. I'm going to do something with it. You know what we do in America today? We spout off these words, I'm sorry, and never intend, don't change. We think that somehow or another going to get us by. Children have learned that from watching mamas and daddies, by the way. I'm sorry, I would never do that again. I would never do that again. You know you're going to do that again. I'm not ever going to mess around now. I promise, Dad, don't whip me, don't whip. No, don't do that. No. You know you need one. I mean, look. I don't know how Jill gets up anymore. They all just whoop them youngers off. All four. Line up. Let's get over with. Y'all gonna get it. You might as well come on and get on it now. Parker back there laughing. He knows he's in the same boat. You realize what takes place. I want you to know that what we see is that you lay down your right. Don't just say you're sorry. Act upon that. Do something with it. If you've offended somebody at church, bebop to them and make sure you settle that. Get it taken care of. If you put somebody, if you've hurt somebody's feelings and you think, man, you know, hey, they deserved it. That's our action. That's how we respond. Well, you know, they ought to just no. And the place that it gets abused the most is between spouses. It's time that we get busy about being Christian. If we're going to wear the title Christian, then let's live a Christian life. Jesus said, you want to go to heaven? Everybody in here say, ooh, I want to get in on that deal. He said, then you need to understand that happy is the phraos, the meek, that inward strength that can only come from God. Because some folks that you got to tell you're sorry to, it's going to take a God act. Sure. There's some folks that you know that just, preacher, that's just, I don't think that's just, that's just tough. But you and I have to make a choice, don't we? Do what's right. So meekness portrays a person who walks in godly peace and lays down his rights. And then finally, meekness portrays a person who willfully and joyfully turns the other cheek. You say, oh my. Now, preacher, you really done gone too far. Yeah, I want you to see this with me because we're going to end in this thought. Here's what it says. Verses 38 and 39 of Matthew. You've heard it that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That was what they lived by. That was the law they lived by. Okay? You've heard that. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. In other words, if somebody is mean to you, You may be the only Bible they ever get to see. You may be the only gospel they get to witness. You may be the only hope of them slipping out of eternity in hell into an eternity in heaven. Resist the one who is evil, but if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And of course, we use that from the standpoint of folks that get up and hit somebody. And the reality of that is, in this passage of Scripture, Jesus said to them, you've got to be so strong that when somebody says something against you, that you turn God loose on them and towards them by your actions, by your communication, and by everything you do. He said, you turn him loose on them, because he'll do the fighting that needs to be fought for you. You just take care of it in the fashion that is real. And so he used that because these folks were all, you remember what they were living under. They were living under things they could see. And all they could see was what the Pharisees showed them. And the Pharisees had said, look, somebody defends you, just plug the eye. If somebody does something wrong, just take it to the fullest extent. And Jesus said to them, and you know their jaws is just on the ground. They can't believe it. So what in the world? This goes against everything they had been taught. And he goes on to say this. Romans chapter 12, verses 19 to 21, Paul says this, beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it's written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. Really. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink, for by so doing you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with what? Good. You see, meekness does that in our life. That piece of what goes on in our life every day, that necessary inward strength that can only come from God, is what you and I, if we're true believers, will display. That will be a part of what takes place. Well, as I think about finishing, I'm reminded of a story I heard about an individual that was teeny in size. The best records that we have of the individual was that she was 4 foot 9 inches tall. Though it tells you she was tiny. The best records we have tell us that she was birthed on this planet in about 1819. It could have been as late as 1822. They're not sure. The records weren't as accurate. They're not sure. She was born to a family, mama and daddy, that were both slaves. They were owned by folk. They had been brought here from Africa on a boat, and she was birthed to them. At the age of 6 years old is when they decided, the slave owners did, that slaves would start being productive. So she was sold into slavery at 6 years old. She did sewing, mending. And every time she would get behind in her sewing and mending for the slave owners, they would beat her at 6 years old. And she through this process as a little old small statued person, that if she ever had the opportunity, she was going to make a difference for the right reasons. The first family that bought her took her back to the previous owner and said she's useless, because every time they would beat her, she would become unproductive. This walked on to the point in time that in this country we had a major war break loose. North and South began to fight over this whole industry of slavery. she ran away and joined the Union Army. 4'9". What in the world could a little old bitty, weak, 4'9" individual do? Well, as time moved along, this little lady not only was a nurse, was a cook, she became a captain in the Union Army and began to lead the troops to go and capture slaves and take them to freedom. You see, this little 4'9" lady's name was Harriet. And Harriet had an incredible journey. She actually started the movement that was called the Underground Railroad. And in the course of her time, she personally, at 4'9", helped 700 slaves get to freedom. You see, if you had looked at her, you'd have said, Harriet Tubman was just a little bitty, frail individual. She'd been beat, battered, and bruised. You'd say that she was incredibly weak, but there was something about her that drove her that was inwardly stronger than anything most folks had ever seen here in that day and age. The story here goes on to say that little bitty, when she was 6 years old, that's what she was called, had a vibrant faith in a loving God. And that drove her to do what she did. I simply say to you today, are you the person that has the meekness that is portrayed in the scriptures? Is your inward strength driven by God and controlled by God? If not, I'll invite you today to say yes to Him and allow Him to help you begin walking the walk that demonstrates godly Christianity. Father, today we love you. Thank you for this morning. Thank you for the time we've had. I thank you for the whole time singing, preaching. I trust, God, that you would take this word and may we realize that, man, as blessed individuals, happy people, that our meekness should shine as a relationship to you. And God, if there are decisions that we need to make today, I trust that we make them in such a way that it would bring honor, glory, and praise to you. And that, God, you be magnified in them. Christ's holy, powerful name I pray. Amen. I invite you to stand right where you're at. Bow your heads, close your eyes for just a moment. Ask yourself, what does my relationship to the Father look like? Ask yourself that. Am I willing to be beaten, battered, bruised, to yield myself to the Father? Am I willing to sell out? Am I willing to just be yielded? If you are, and you're not, that'd be a good day. Slip out and come on. So as the invitation begins, God's spoken to your heart, you need to respond. Why don't you do it?